Ring of Honor at our best, 2004, entering a new era of Ring of Honor. Thanks, Rob Feinstein, but also a lot of influential talent entering the company at this point. We got Nigel McGuinness, Roderick Strong, Austin Aries, Ox Baker, Dusty Rhodes, Ricky Steamboat, all on one card. Well, that and more on the Apron Bump podcast.
And the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what heart is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock this. Let's get started.
What is up, everybody? What is up? How are we all doing? Glad to have you. Welcome to the Apron Bump podcast. I am your host, the hardest part of the ring, Kyle Bird. We got some Ring of Honor to talk about today at our best. 2004. Pretty monumental show, really. At least like in the back half. I'll say this show is very back heavy as far as like the meaty content. You know what I mean? We got Jay Briscoe versus Samoa Joe for the world title in a solid steel cage, which we go on to kind of specify why, but this might be the most gruesome match I've ever seen in my life. Just sickening at some point. It was wild. We also, on the other end of the spectrum, got AJ Styles versus CM Punk for the pure title with Ricky Steamboat as a special guest referee. So Ring of Honor at this point offering a lot of different types of wrestling. I say that, but one criticism, we get into this, is kind of the first half of this show kind of felt, you know what, I'll save it for the episode, but I think the pacing of the show was weird. But the last three matches, the pure title match, the world title match, and the scramble cage match at the end of the match, which gave us one of the most wild spots I've ever seen in pro wrestling, the craziest pile driver I've ever seen in my life. So you walk out of the show feeling good, but I don't know, kind of a weird one, but we get into it. Who's we? Well, myself and Matt from a pro wrestling podcast from Matt and Friends, returning to the show. Always a good old time with Matt. Go check out a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and Friends. Go check out his podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. Does a lot of great interviews with wrestling talent from all over the globe. Even some guys that I've talked about on my podcast. Like one of his most recent episodes was with Chase Stevens from The Naturals, which is very interesting. Very interesting time in TNA. And talked to Rhett Titus, Judas Chavez, like lots of guys from all, like a bunch of different companies. And he's a fun guy. He gets into the, he's not there to just ask the basic questions. He has a good old time on his podcast. So highly recommend it. Go check it out. I'll put his link tree in the description as well. You can find him wherever you need him. Follow me as well at Apron Bump on all the social medias. Follow the YouTube. Been more prominent on YouTube recently with kind of shorter videos. So now's the time to check that out if you haven't already. Make sure you subscribe. Check out the video versions, the audio versions of this podcast. Join the Discord. Oh, what else is there to plug other than my mouth? Let's just get right into it, baby. Ring of Honor at our best, 2004, with myself and Matt from a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and Friends.
It's just so good, bro.
Dude, I've been playing it on repeat all fucking day.
Like, I'm so glad you shared that with me, bro, because it's so fantastic.
Dude, I need to like delve into that guy's archives. I don't know if he's done more remixes like that, but
bro, when I started listening to it, when you posted it and you're like, how could I not get this out of my head the rest of the day? I was like, if Kyle says this, I have to check it out.
Burn it up. I don't even really know the words. It's just
I don't either, but dude, like I put it on and I'm like, this is the catchiest song of all time.
I just want to go outside and skip along the sidewalk and
Right. Like usually I'd be afraid of Kane, but now I'm like, I want to skip and like put my arm between his arm and like
yeah, you just want to like, you know, put your hand in between his mask and face.
Yes.
Rub his cheek a little bit. Then slowly pull the mask off.
Yes.
And then underneath is just a cock and it's mine. Anyways, we got, I don't know. I had no plan for where I was going. Is this shirt too close to my skin tone, by the way?
You know what, dude? I thought you were naked and I was cool with it.
I mean, I can be, if that's what we need. If that's what we need to get through this.
Maybe one episode we'll do it eventually down the road. Like just start like slowly unbuttoning one button and just getting it wider, you know?
Every match we talk about, I'll undo one button.
Like, look at all the chest hair, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. You don't have a lot of chest hair either. I'm also pretty smooth, you know?
But I see the tattoo. Is that a Samoan tattoo, or you starting to go with the bloodline?
Yeah, slowly but surely. I am what would my bloodline name be? Kyle. Kyle's not a very Samoan name. I get called Samoan a lot because people don't know what my ethnicity is, and they're like, "Oh, you're probably Samoan, right?" It's like, no.
I thought you were Japanese this entire time.
But anyways, were there any Japanese people on this card? I don't think so, right?
Nah.
Well,
I mean, somewhere probably in Special K there was a Japanese dude. I don't know. There was a lot of them.
Yeah, they had some ambiguous races in that group. I'm looking. Is John Walters Japanese? He might have a little something in him.
I don't know.
Man. Well, no Japs on this show, thank goodness. Don't worry, folks. But yeah.
He said, thank goodness.
It's all jokes. It's not my best joke, but we're at our best. That's what the show is called. What'd you think of the show, man?
So, you know, honestly, I had higher expectations. You know, with all the names on the card that I've seen and how great the talent is, I don't know if it was just the production itself that just made it not like super fun because of how new it was. I mean, some of the matches were great. The 6-way was fantastic. I mean, there was fun to it for sure. I think the last show we did together, that Progress show, I would have to say was better. But this is early ROH, so I feel like I can't be too critical on it because they're still finding their footing at this point. All in all, I'd probably say a 6.5 out of 10.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that because that's kind of how I felt about this whole rewatch I've been doing of Ring of Honor. Because I started watching in like the late 2000s. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go watch the origins of all these guys. But it takes a while before it gets good. 02 is mostly garbage. 03, there's some good stuff in there, but not great. And now we're in 04, which is the year where everybody's like, oh, it's just from top to bottom. It's one of the best years. But so far, it's been like, oh, it's been okay. It hasn't been bad.
What was the best show you've seen so far in 2004?
2004. I mean, this is like, because this is March, I think, right? So this is only the fourth show. They all like kind of blur together, to be honest. The second anniversary show was the last show. Honestly, this show here might be the best of the year so far. But I don't think the difference between the best and the worst is super high, if that makes any sense. I think the last 3 matches on this card, I think are awesome in their own ways.
No, great. 100%.
But we're kind of, it's also interesting because this is kind of a transitionary era in a lot of ways for Ring of Honor because, well, for one thing, this is right around the time the Rob Feinstein stuff happens, which I don't know how familiar you are with that.
I'm not. So I kind of want to take a dive into this. So what exactly was this? Because I seen about it earlier, but I didn't kind of read up on it yet. So exactly what happened?
Yeah. I mean, I'm fuzzy on the exact details, but more or less he was caught messaging underage kids and didn't quite get caught. So he never like served any, consequence to it. But I think he was basically ousted from the company. And when I was looking this up, everything I find says it happened in March of 2004. It doesn't specify a date or anything, so I don't know if it happened at this point or if it was about to happen. But I think there's gonna be a lot of changes in Ring of Honor after this. But so that's one element, and but also we're introducing a lot of new characters, which to you might not even have known that they were new. This was Nigel McGuinness's first big match. He's appeared in a few shows as like kind of attraction bonus match type stuff.
Right.
But this is his first match that had like consequence on the rest of like for titles and stuff like that. We get
his
our
match
first
here
look
was
at,
great. I loved his match here. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely a different style from him. But even guys like Roddy Strong and Austin Aries and even Jimmy Rave to an extent, like these are all guys that haven't really been established yet, and we're like just starting to build on those guys. And
for sure.
So it's kind of a transition in that sense. But overall, I would agree. The show was fine. And there are maybe like 2 or 3 matches that I'd recommend, but that's kind of representative of Ring of Honor from what I've seen so far. So,
oh yeah, I mean the 2 that I would recommend 100%, and we'll get into it later, is Punk versus Styles for sure, and then Joe versus Briscoe.
That it's saying a lot. That might be the bloodiest match I've ever seen in my life. Well, at least on one guy's part. I've never seen blood clot like that. That was disgusting.
Me neither. And I almost threw up, and I never throw up at blood. And I was so disgusted when I seen it hanging and clotting.
Oh, dude.
Gross, dude.
But
we'll get into that.
Just a little tease. Just a little tease. Little blood clot tease.
Were you playing with my balls? Is that what that was?
Oh, or whatever. Whatever you like played with.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I needed to get tickled, you know?
I feel like I have no feeling in my balls. Is that weird?
Sometimes I'm there too, man. Sometimes the other day I felt like my left nut was missing. You know what I'm saying? Like,
oh, interesting. Just the left one.
Just the left, dude. Like, I felt like the right and the left kind of merged into one, and it faded to the right side. Like, it's weird.
That's deep. Maybe you could have used Samoa Joe to help you. But speaking of which, Samoa Joe's here in Samoa Joe's ring. So he's opening the show here. It's a little backstage deal. And this is a kind of a running thing they do every show now, where Joe is cutting a promo while kicking the shit out of trainees, I assume.
Yeah.
Basically, just setting up the main event tonight, the cage match, and all that stuff. What'd you think of this? Is like the first thing you see when you turn this on. What'd you think of Joe and all this?
I'm curious who the dude was, because like he introduced this guy, and like I kind of honestly I have to go back and remember this dude's name, because I want to research him to see if he actually was a wrestler or anything, because I feel like he wasn't. But I thought it was an interesting way to open a show. Right. Like there, you know, I guess because leading up to it, I didn't know the context of it. So I just thought it was just some random shit going on. And like, I was like, okay, like this isn't really necessary for this show, I guess, but I guess it also is. I don't know. You know, it was weird. It was very weird. I mean, cause I guess, how do I put it? Cause Joe has only been wrestling for a few years before this happened. And I guess being a brand new company, you still don't know what the hell you're doing. So I just feel like it was just added there for extra content, you know. It was weird, just plain and simple. I didn't know what to make of it. I was just like, you know, okay, like this is very interesting. Usually you do like a intro to the show and you kind of like promo like what matches are going to be on the card. Instantly started with just Joe there, just talking to some backstage training, like you said, and very interesting. Like just he's like, well, this is what you do, and then you get around him and fucking hump him from behind and put him in a chokehold. Is
that what he said?
Something like that. I thought like he just got on top of him from behind, and I was like, no, he's way tinier than you. Like, don't hurt him.
No, there's twinks for a reason, man. But yeah, it was a weird way to start. I mean, I enjoyed it. Maybe it's because I know the context of kind of what they're doing here. Samoa Joe, that's his thing. Cutting a promo as he's like submission chain wrestling a guy. And he's like, oh, what you want to do is you could really get under there and choke him out. Then, you could see him turning purple or whatever the hell.
That's probably why we never seen the guy afterwards. He probably killed him.
Yeah, I was trying to gauge like, hey, is this fucking Seth Rollins or something? But no, I don't know. He's also, by the way, Samoa Joe is also angry, which we'll touch on this later, that they've introduced a new singles title, the Pure Championship, which we see the first defense of that title later in the show. So I guess he's just taking out his sexual frustration here.
I mean, Joe literally during the segment was like shitting on the Pure title.
Yeah.
And then is like, we don't need this championship. I'm going to show you why the world championship is the main championship.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that throughout the show, honestly, because they just introduced this title. And like, if we're looking at this in a kayfabe sense, yeah, Joe doesn't want another title introduced because maybe it'll dilute his prestige or whatever. But do we have to explicitly be like, nah, that title was just made up, but it's not real. Like this one's the one to be in defense. It's like
that shit on the title that just started. Like,
yeah, like what are we doing? And then now the champions are already feuding against each other. Like, why not keep them separate for a little bit, build prestige of the new title, and then have them collide? But
I mean, Ring of Honor's been around for 20 years now, so obviously at the end of the day, they did something right.
Yeah, I mean, they did enough right to bring in Dusty Rhodes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right?
And
He's
Ox
here.
Baker.
Ox Baker. You a big Ox Baker guy?
I've heard of him. I've never watched him. I have had conversations about him with like guys that are around my dad's age that have known who Ox Baker is and talked about how brutal he was and stuff like that. Right. I never got into like the old school wrestling, like 60s, 50s, whatever. And Ox Baker, I mean, he just looks like a bull. Like he looks like he just
he's a menacing looking fella.
What's that?
I was saying he was a menacing looking fella back in the day. That huge, crazy mustache.
Oh yeah, and like you see the mustache in here, and you just knew he wanted to just tear Dusty's ass apart, dude. Like,
whoa.
I know.
I mean, is that what the feud is? He wanted that ass, and he wouldn't give it to him.
Dusty wouldn't give it to him, man. And I feel like Dusty was like, "Hey, stay away from my ass," with his little lisp kind of thing. Stay away from my ass.
I love that. That's just a sound bite that I have of you now.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you.
No problem.
I didn't know the context of it though. Like I didn't understand the context. Like, so was there a feud leading up to that between Ox Baker and Dusty? Like, did I miss something?
From what I gathered, it seemed that they feuded maybe in the 70s or something.
Okay.
And this is just a callback to that. No, but Ox Baker had never been on these shows. Dusty has actually made a few appearances, but it wasn't like a reoccurring thing. So no, this is just a random kind of thing. Also, by the way, some more context here. This is the night before WrestleMania 20. So you got to think a lot of legends are in town. We're in New York, I believe the show was at when WrestleMania was in Madison Square Garden. So I don't know if that was related. Dusty even cut a promo before the show. He was like, yeah, they wanted me in WrestleMania, but I said, nah, daddy, I'm coming to Ring of Honor, which I don't know if that's necessarily true, but
and now Ox Baker's coming for my ass.
Yeah, he's coming for his ass. He certainly is. And while that I was watching this, I was like, oh, this is kind of just a silly non-canon thing. It actually comes into play later, but
more Ox Baker just started inching more towards Dusty, and Dusty's like, I'm about a fan, so stay away from me. And I was like,
yeah, because Dusty and Ox were like walking through the crowd. This is like all before the show, like the house lights are on and whatever. And Dusty gets in the ring. He's like, you can't even get over the barricade. And then Ox is like, oh, hey, yeah, is yelling a lot of nothing.
Right.
So, but they really dragged that out. But again, I guess it comes into play, so maybe they had to.
Oh yeah, I mean, we seen it again later. So,
but before we get there, we got a little 6-man mayhem on our hands here. The opening match, we got Mark Briscoe versus Teddy Hart versus Jimmy Rave versus Sanjay Dutt versus Amazing Red versus Jack Evans.
Yes.
Ooh, daddy. Thoughts?
Fantastic match. All great stars. This was pre-murderous Teddy Hart.
I think we're maybe a little overlap. This is after the incident he had in Ring of Honor where he wouldn't leave the ring. It was I don't know if you're familiar with this. It was a cage match where he kept moonsaulting off the top of the cage and he wouldn't leave the ring. I think he vomited in the ring. I forget the exact details, but they brought him back. I guess this controversy probably creates appeal. So, but yes,
Teddy Hart's a very interesting person. I mean, granted, fantastic wrestler, but there's just been so much controversy for years on Teddy Hart, and it's just like, and then like he walks to the ring and he's like, man, you cheer for me, I'll die for you, and I'm like, that's a little excessive.
He's
like
a fucking cornball, this Teddy Hart.
And then, Amazing Red comes out. Amazing Red's fantastic. I've always been a fan of Amazing Red since the moment I seen him. Everybody loved Rey Mysterio. Everybody was a big Rey Mysterio guy. I was an Amazing Red guy. I thought Amazing Red was that guy for me. He was my superhero, like my lucha. Like Amazing Red was just so friggin' good, man. And I thought he was something special. Jack Evans, I feel like this was pre Jack Evans doing crazy shit.
He was easing his way into it, but yeah, he busted out a few wild spots in this one. Yeah.
Jimmy Rave was a lot of fun in this match. Sanjay Dutt, he did his little, fucking thing on his way to the ring.
Sprinkler.
Yeah.
The original player from the Himalaya.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I love Sanjay Dutt. I can't ever talk shit about Sanjay Dutt.
He looked really good. So I would say everyone shined in this match, I thought.
I
agree, Jimmy Rave, because Jimmy Rave's appeared in a bunch of shows leading up to this, but he's been kind of a glorified jobber at this point. But this one, I felt like he finally... He looked like a star in this one. As much as
I honestly thought it was at a point where he was just going to be the one that wins. Unfortunately, he didn't. But no, I mean, honestly, I love the concept of the 6-way scramble like that, where like you don't have to tag in, but once one person's out of the ring. Oh yeah, my bad.
So scramble's a completely different match.
Yeah, 6-man mayhem. I get it. My bad. I'm learning the ROH lingo here. There's a difference between a scramble and a mayhem. But honestly, I love the concept of it because I love when all people are in the ring at once, but it just gets too chaotic and you miss so much. There's one thing that can happen in the corner and you're just like, oh shit, I missed it. And then you have to go back and watch it because somebody else is talking. Like, I love the concept of it. Like, once somebody gets out of the ring, somebody else can come in. You don't need to tag, or you can tag, whatever you choose. But
my question is, if that's the case, why is anybody standing on the apron waiting to get in?
Fair point.
I understand just like from a television standpoint, but is this one of those things where like you think about the logic for 2 seconds? But it does break down eventually, so it doesn't really matter that much. But
it was mayhem. Look at that. I think that's what they get it at, is like 6-man mayhem, because you tag because it says 6 men and then it becomes mayhem, and it was very interesting.
The math checks out there, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. But I feel like that was like the first type of match of that kind, like where you've seen something like that, which was really cool. It brought a kind of new match style to professional wrestling, which I thought was a lot of fun. And all these guys, I mean, all 6 have had such a career. Jack Evans doesn't get talked about enough. Amazing Red, another one doesn't get talked about enough. Sanjay Dutt. I mean, guys like you and me who actually, appreciate what these wrestlers have done for the business can sit there and say, like, these guys are legends. But a guy who might have just broke into the business and might just start getting to know and looks at Sanjay Dutt would be like, that guy's a legend? Yeah, he's a legend. He's a fantastic performer, fantastic wrestler. I mean, he also carries pencils to the ring now. So, I mean... You can't shit on Sanjay. I mean, Amazing Red runs, House of Glory. Fantastic promotion. Still killing it. Still doing his thing. I mean, but man, this match really showcased these 6 youngsters at that time. It was brilliant. I thought it was a great way to start the show. We seen the match end the way it should have, I think, with Amazing Red coming out on top. They disclosed it during that match. He just came back from an injury.
Yep, this is his first match in 7 months, I think.
Yeah, so, but man, I was very impressed. I thought it was a fun way to open it. I think watching any of the other matches, if they would have opened it with any other match, it might not have went anywhere else. Like, I think it could have got stuck. But this was great. Great way to open it. I thought it was fantastic. And it really showcased a little bit of what each one of these competitors were all about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that Ring of Honor at this point, if there's one thing that's been consistent, is that they always open up, or early on in the show, they have one of these multi-man matches, and it's always like this. It's always like, you know, who cares about the storytelling? Who cares about, you know, whatever's going on? Let's just do some cool spots. And in the early 2000s, like, that's all the fans needed. Like, they're watching on the other channel, they're watching Luther Reigns versus Charlie Haas or some shit. So yeah, let's get some cool guys, bunch of pleather, lots of shiny pants, baggy pants, bandanas. Everyone kind of looks the same, but who gives a shit? Let's do Jack Evans busting out a 630, which in 2004 is wild.
Yep.
Let's see. Jack Evans is just breakdancing all over the place. He does some sort of spinning dive. Everybody has their dive. Teddy Hart does a crazy, like a spiral tap kind of dive. Sanjay
Amazing Red tried, but Jimmy Rave grabbed his feet and said, nope, you're not doing this today.
And I like that because people have been waiting for Amazing Red to come back. Because I mean, he was, you know, one of the first tag team champions. He was a staple in the first year of Ring of Honor. Now he's back. Everyone's like, I can't wait to see Amazing Red do his amazing stuff. And then you have everybody on the outside. He's you know, clapping. I'm gonna dive. I'm gonna hit the rubber. Jimmy Rave stops him. Like Jimmy Rave's part in this match, I thought was great too. And Mark Briscoe, which he's probably the youngest guy in this match, felt like the seasoned veteran because the Briscoes have been like another staple of Ring of Honor. So he almost felt above this match in a way, but his part in it, I think he was a good like focal point of the match.
Oh, for sure. And this was before Mark lost all his teeth.
Yes. So, I mean, he's still handsome today, but just a different kind of handsome,
sure.
right?
I mean, that's my top celebrity male crush right there, Mark Briscoe.
Wow, of the two Briscoes, you picked Mark, huh?
I have to, man. He just, you know, I think something sexy about a man when they're missing teeth like that.
Oh, well, I have a little chip in my tooth. You can't really see it.
And that's why I think you're incredibly sexy, Kyle.
That's all it takes, huh? Just a little chip. A little chip.
My girlfriend's going to watch this show, and she's going to be like, oh, you're hitting on men now, huh? And I'm going to be like,
that's fine,
Kyle
right?
and Mark Briscoe. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's my thing. Just Kyle and Mark Briscoe.
That's all you need. That's all a boy needs.
I'm a man, damn it. You see my chest hairs?
No, I don't. So we got Sanjay Dutt here. He's wearing baggy pants. Hey, what do you think about the spot of him running up the ref's back over the top rope? It seemed like he was trying to land on the top rope, but missed, but then played it off like he was just hurdling it, which it looked okay, but it was just wonky looking.
I even wrote that down. Sanjay literally lost his footing by trying to jump off the ref to go over the rope and just completely botched the shit out of it. I mean, he still stuck a landing of some sort.
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't call it a complete botch, but it was definitely it zigged when he was trying to zag. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Dolph Ziggler's the only one that can pull off a good zigzag. You know what I'm saying?
That's actually a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Sanjay did find his footing, still did something. Dude, I do want to say this. Man, Teddy Hart's shooting star elbow drop is one of the best things I've ever seen in professional wrestling. And I hate knowing what Teddy Hart has done. But I can't take away with how good he is in that ring. Or how good he was in that ring. I don't think he's getting booked as much anymore now because of everything, or he's arrested or some shit. I don't know. But just the athleticism he had in that ring was crazy. That shooting star elbow was such a thing of beauty, man. And I was like, dude, when he busted that out, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it, Teddy.
I'm glad you brought up the shooting star because there was a point in this match where Jimmy Rave, he like hits, I think, Sanjay with a like a tilt-a-whirl into a crossface. So Jimmy Rave's got the crossface on. Teddy Hart tries to break it up with the shooting star press, but comes up a little short and just hits the mat with a splat. And commentary's even like, what the hell was that? So, you know, that's kind of just indicative of Teddy Hart.
Teddy Hart tried. He tried. A for effort, Teddy. A for effort. But we've seen another shooting star in the end of the match. I mean, there was a lot of shooting stars in that match. But Amazing Red ended with a standing shooting star.
The Red Star Press. you may say. So yeah, Amazing Red pins Sanjay with the standing shooting star and gets the win in his return match, which that's really the only way this could have ended.
Is that really
I thought
a
everybody
cool
looked good
finisher, though? Like, I love Amazing Red and I love his style, but as a standing shooting
I
star,
think in 04, it's pretty cool. I don't think everybody and their mother was doing standing shooting stars like they are today.
That's fair. Yeah, everybody. Dude, you should see my mom doing a standing shooting star. She's 71. Last time she did it, she broke her hip. It was crazy.
I've seen her do a starfish, huh? Come on. Yeah. We're talking about sex.
Good job. Hey, I'll tell my mom you said hi. I got you.
Thanks. I already did. Anything else from that Mayhemis match?
Mayhemis match? Nah, man. I mean, in all honesty, like I said, great way to start it. I think, like I said, there was no other way you could have really started this show other than that match. It really showcased a little bit of what each talent brought. Back in 2004, that was something special. Like you said, I mean, it was some stuff people weren't even doing. Ring of Honor at that time, I felt like, was really showcasing wrestling in a different light than what other professional wrestling was doing. You've seen the cruiserweight division in WCW, but were wrestlers really doing what they were doing in the independents that they were doing in WCW or WWE? No, there was a whole different side of what wrestling was when Ring of Honor was doing something like this. And like I said, each of them showcased their talent. Mark Briscoe really stood out as the most because he's, at that point already a champion, already carrying gold. I just felt like he stood out so much that you really didn't need to add him into it, but you also did because his brother was going to be on the show. You needed to have Mark on the show as well. Right. But,
and also, I don't even know if I mentioned the winner of that match is a part of the top 5 rankings in Ring of Honor.
Yes.
So high stakes, I guess.
I gotta continue to watch from there and see how their ranking system plays out. Is it like AEW's ranking system, or is
yes, and that it doesn't fucking matter? Yeah,
makes sense.
I mean, they have a number 1 contender, which every wrestling company does. Otherwise, It's just like they try to frame it as like, oh, you should just be honored to be in the top 5. Like that's enough prestige in just being there. It's like, who gives a shit?
Yep.
No company has done rankings right yet. But hey,
maybe rankings just need to stop.
We got the Second City Saints here backstage. We got old Ace Steel and Colt Cabana and CM Punk, of course. I'm looking at Ace Steel here. I'm never seen
Tracy Brooks here.
Was she part of this backstage?
She was backstage too, yeah.
I'm not a big Tracy Brooks guy.
That's
the schoolgirl. She wasn't dressed as a schoolgirl, at least on this show, but she's just annoying to look at sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it's just because of the schoolgirl stuff that she always did. Now I'm just like,
fuck it. I'm done. I get it. You know what? The only reason I really was obsessed with her is when she was in TNA and Matt Bentley was doing the Bentley bounce, and then she. Oh,
you big Matt Bentley guy? Were you the Matt Bentley fan? Michael Shane fan? Were you a Michael Shane guy or a Matt Bentley guy?
I liked Michael Shane, but I loved Matt Bentley.
What about Maverick Matt?
Oh, bigger fan.
Well, we'll do a retrospective of that gentleman at some point.
I think Maverick Matt was the best out of all 3.
Well, you might enjoy 2002 Ring of Honor because he's all over that.
Are you shitting on Matt Bentley?
Yes. I'm shitting on the Bentley bounce. Michael Shane is fine. Matt Bentley is a dildo. Maverick Matt can eat my ass. I don't know where that falls in the hierarchy, but that's just how I feel. You know what I'm saying?
That's hilarious.
Well, anyway, the Second City Saints are here. And I mean, we all know Colt Cabana. He's the funny guy. He has his talk show. Punk's here. He's like, there will be no tomfoolery, no hijinks, no shenanigans. We're going to end the prophecy tonight, which is a match that's going to happen later. Yep. And then Ace Steel is just looking at the camera like a man that's going to bite somebody's thigh. Like, nobody looks more like a biter than Ace Steel.
Yeah, he looks like in like 19 years, he's about to destroy somebody and just use his teeth.
Something like that.
I sensed it. Like his face just said, I'm going to bite someone. It might not be today, Might not be tomorrow, but 19 years from now, I'm biting a motherfucker.
He's going to pick his spot. And by golly, he did.
By golly, he did. And we should have had Jim Ross say that. You know, that would have been great.
We could have. Well, we don't have Jim Ross, but we do have Gary Michael Capetta, who is in the ring, who is like the Ring of Honor GM at this point. And he wants to know where Homicide is, because Homicide left a few months ago and nobody knows his whereabouts. So Gary's like, hey, maybe his boy Julius Smokes will know. Oh, wait, we already did this like a few months ago. They pretty much did this exact same segment. But just the first time, Julius was just like, I don't know. And that was it. But at least he has some substance here, because Julius Smokes comes out and he's like, he's just blabbing. He's just making noises is all I can say is what this was.
He started singing, I think, at one point, too.
Oh, he fucking sucks, Julius Smokes. I'm sorry. He's just so annoying.
I thought, man, I was sitting here and I was like, man, if Julius Smokes came out with a record tomorrow, I'd buy it. But then at the same time, I felt like he was like the biggest hype man, dude. I felt like I was ready. Yep.
Oh, sorry, I'm losing control of my Julius drops. But yeah, so he says Homicide's around, and he says that Homicide wants to fight Joe in New York, which I guess is an upcoming show they have. No, I think he said, and it's hard to tell because this fucking audio is terrible.
Oh yeah, no, I couldn't hear anything other than Julius trying to sing and doing what you just did with the fucking sound effect thing. That's all I kept hearing was just the sound effects and the singing. Like, couldn't make sense of what he was saying, and I'm glad you kind of understood it better than I could, because I was just like, what the fuck? Yeah,
well, so I think Homicide beat Samoa Joe a few months ago in a non-title match, and then they just have never like referenced it. They never followed up on it. It's been months and months, and now finally Homicide is challenging Joe to a title match because he beat him in New York. But I think it's in their next show, which is like Minneapolis or some shit. They're gonna fight for the title. So this is just this is like 20 minutes of Julius on just one loop of calling Samoa Joe fat, saying blat blat, and then singing mindlessly. And I don't know, he stinks. I fucking hate this guy.
So how long was this guy? Because the Gary dude I've never seen before other than
GMC.
Yeah. So
Gary
how
Michael
long
Capetta.
was he? How long was he their like GM type person before?
Hell if I know, man. He's been there since the beginning. So
I have to look this guy up.
I mean, he was a ring announcer back in the day for WCW. You might recognize the voice if you heard it. Like,
okay,
he talks like this in this corner. You know, like, but yeah. So we're still backstage, by the way. But now we're cutting to Ricky Steamboat in the hallway with CM Punk and AJ Styles. It's crazy just to see three huge stars just in a shitty hallway with bad audio talking. And because Ricky Steamboat is going to be the special guest referee for the match between Punk and AJ later in the night. Punk says he got screwed in their last match, which we'll touch more on that later. But interesting seeing Ricky here in Ring of Honor, huh?
I think it was cool to see all those talents there, because you never knew that other talents were going to go other places until like Ring of Honor. Because Ring of Honor was I remember the first time I ever heard of Ring of Honor, it was like Ric Flair is going to show up of a Ring of Honor show, and it was in the newspaper because newspapers were still a thing back then. And it was in a newspaper. Right. My dad like was reading it, and he's like, "Hey son, have you ever?" And I'm like, you know, my dad doesn't call me son anymore; he calls me asshole or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, I could see why.
But back then, when he was actually, you know, nice to me, he was like, "Hey son, check this out," and I was like, "Oh, cool," you know. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, "What the hell's a Ring of Honor?" You know,
right?
Didn't know it existed, but you know, it was cool to see that, and then seeing all these legends on this show was pretty fun. I mean, because like I said, you seen Ox Baker and Dusty earlier, you see Ricky Steamboat now. And then you get two legends in the business that you didn't know at that time. Styles and Punk were going to be such legends in this business today. Yeah. So it was cool to see that, because looking back at that now, you're like, this is three legends right here. This is fun. But like you said, it was like a shitty hallway. They couldn't even get a room. They were just kind of like...
yeah. They couldn't get a room.
Terrible production. Like, I mean, you put a dragon and a Punk and a phenomenal person in a bedroom. What do you get, you know? Magic.
What do you get? Oh, okay. Okay. I see.
Magic. Nah, dude, for real though. You put them in a room together. I mean, it's actually be better for this situation, but they put them in like this little shitty hallway with like a glass window behind them and all this shit. And Ricky's like, shake hands and be professional. And Punk's like, get the fuck out of here. Like,
hell yeah.
You know, Punk being Punk. And it was weird because you see in the segment like a few minutes beforehand that Punk was with the Second City Stains backstage, and then like just a whole different demeanor. And it's like, did he just literally just like turn a corner, because that was so quick and like so precise? Like they had them like right next to each other. But I guess that whole Julius Smoke segment, Punk got to walk a little bit the other hallway.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's a lot of time.
I was just kind of like, I'm glad that production's gotten better for this company years later, because this was just awful.
It took a long time, man. I mean, when I was watching in like '08, it was like the same shit. So it's like the audio is not that much better. Whatever, the content gets better, that's fine. But speaking of legends, we got Slick Wagner Brown in this next match, taking on Xavier in a yeah, man. So Xavier just joined the Embassy, which is a faction that is just getting started at this point. So Xavier's out there with Prince Nana. Very topical. This was a match that happened, I'll say.
It was.
Do you agree or do you disagree?
So,
it was fine. Like, my main takeaway here is that, first of all, it just felt like Xavier was being held back by Slick a little bit. Like, Xavier just had that like raw athleticism about him, and he was like pretty innovative, even though it was only smooth like 70% of the time. But I thought Xavier looked pretty good, but it feels like he could have used a better opponent here. But
for sure. And like, this was the first time I've ever seen Slick Wagner Brown wrestle. I've heard the name before numerous times. I've seen what he looked like, and I was just like, man, part of me's just not interested. I mean, nothing screamed, let me watch you, which sounds very creepy in retrospect of how I just said that, which, hey, you know.
Let me watch you.
Let me watch you. So I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But, I mean, I think all eyes were on April Hunter because of how sexy she was when she came out. And I was like, damn, look at her. You know what I'm saying?
Isn't
like,
she a porn
obviously,
star or something?
She was, yes, or some shit like that. Man, but how different did Prince Nana look? Like, holy crap. Compared to now, I feel like Prince Nana looks younger now than he did back then.
I was about to say, he doesn't look that... I mean, he's skinnier now, but otherwise, it doesn't crack. You know what I'm saying?
But Xavier, like, this entire match, they're like, yeah, Xavier's trying to work on submission moves. He's trying to look on submission moves. He's trying to work on submission moves. And I'm like, I get it, dude. He's trying to work on submission moves. Like, okay, I understand your concept here. Like, I've seen what Xavier can do, and he's such a talented performer. And when he passed away, I think, what was it, a year or two ago? You know, it sucked to hear that because he was still very young. You know, but like you said, you know, knowing what he was capable of and seeing this side of him, it just felt like it was very slow compared to what he's capable of in that ring. So I feel like this was just kind of a filler match. Kind of add Xavier there somewhere. I was not impressed with Slick Wagner Brown at all. Xavier was cool to see. I've never seen a full Nelson camel clutch like that to end the match the way they did. Yeah. I mean, there was no real point outs in this match to get me to be like, let's have a 20-minute conversation on this match, because it just, I mean, to me, it didn't stick out. I thought it was a cool ending because I've never seen that as a finish before. I mean, what are your takeaways on this match? I'm kind of curious to see what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it for me. It definitely felt like, they were definitely hammering home the fact that he was trying to build on his submission offense. I don't know if they're trying to build him to be like a pure title contender or what it is, because he's already had his world title run. So maybe that's the kind of the direction he's going in. Yeah. And also trying to establish the Embassy as a faction, even though it's just him at this point. But and then trying to get over this new finisher, which, like you said, it was a camel clutch, full Nelson. But it seemed like he fucked up or I guess both of them kind of fucked up the transition into it, because it seemed like he was trying to do a German suplex and then a smooth roll backwards into it, but
Yeah.
the timing was off. And but
Terrible opponent to try that with.
yeah, exactly. So it was what it was. It's a match I'll forget about here in probably like 10 minutes. But
2 minutes for me, but hey, well, who's counting?
What match? What match happened? I don't even know. Hey, we got Nigel McGuinness here.
Yes.
Wrestling Jerry Lynn for the #1 contendership for the Pure Wrestling Championship.
Yep.
So like I said, this is first because Nigel's appeared as like a local talent. He's appeared in like multi-man matches as kind of like an attraction. But this is his first match with like title implications. So this was nice to see. And against Jerry Lynn, who would eventually take the world title off of Nigel, which I'm still a little salty about. But it was nice to see their first ever matchup, allegedly, at least according to commentary.
Yep.
And I like that it's, #1 contendership for the pure title. It seems like both these guys could fit into that division pretty seamlessly. But I'm interested to hear what you think about this match, because I think I liked it, but I don't know.
So I did like it a lot, actually. I did not know that at that time that was like an early Nigel McGuinness. You just pointed that out to me, which was really cool. But I mean, honestly, the chemistry between both of them was very fitting. I thought it was brilliant. I thought the spots that they hit was a lot of fun, because like Jerry Lynn, you got somebody who can do ground based, but also can take it to the air if he has to. Nigel McGuinness is one of the best technical wrestlers, I think, of all time. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time in general. But I thought this match was fun. I was very impressed with, there was a spot Nigel McGuinness hit where he did like a rebound backflip off of the ropes and then did like an automatic reverse elbow. And I was like very impressed with his stature, his size, like how athletic he was in this match against Jerry Lynn. But you have an opponent like Jerry Lynn, where Jerry has been in the business for a little bit already, and is just phenomenal and has been in some of the best matches with other guys already. Just started the X division with TNA and coming off matches with like AJ Styles and Low Key and all these other people, Christopher Dan, coming off those kind of matches, like he's coming from where, I use weapons and stuff in ECW to actually being a fantastic wrestler, and coming in here with a guy who's still young and just trying to get somewhere and get his foot through the door like Nigel McGuinness. I thought they really balanced and really kind of built that chemistry right then and there. For their first match together. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's one of those matches that I can go back and watch again. I did thoroughly enjoy it. And then seeing how their feud can build later on when they do have eventual matchups, it's cool to see where this is the beginning. We've seen a lot of typical Jerry Lynn spots, where he hits the leg drop off, to the second rope where he's like draped over. It just seemed like it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of good chemistry between both of them. You could never tell that this was one of Nigel's very first breakout matches because he was just so comfortable in that ring. And that goes to show what kind of star he was later on. He didn't have like a 20, 30 plus in-ring career like some of these wrestlers do, but to know that he's made a name for himself in this industry and just a short amount of time is absolutely incredible. And this match, I think, really showcased, the start of that beginning. So that was really fun to watch. And, I think these two really brought the best out of each other.
Yeah, for sure. And it's very interesting watching early Nigel because I wouldn't say it's super different from what he would go on to be, but it's definitely more chain heavy. Like it's classic European wrestling with a little bit of high flying, even like you said, the backflip into the elbow off the ropes. So he's definitely got a little bit of a different style than he would go on to have.
Yep.
But it was interesting. I think the best parts of this match were like the chain wrestling, the classic, because it wasn't even like super pretty. Like it was even a little clunky at some points, but I think that rough around the edges approach, because otherwise it kind of just looks like a dance, but it felt like a struggle between these two, which is why I think I think that was the strength of this match. But
for sure. And I think, like I said, at the end of the day, we've seen, a lot of chain wrestling in the match. We've seen some fun spots. You know, at the end of the match, I mean, I was kind of bummed seeing that Nigel didn't win, but knowing that this was one of his first breakout matches from what you just said makes a lot more sense. You know, you've seen Jerry take over in that classic finish of hitting the cradle pile driver, which is still one of the most beautiful pile drivers of all time. You know, anybody else that hits a cradle pile driver is cool, but nobody can hit that like Jerry Lynn did. I mean,
the way he got into it too, the way he got into it, I thought was very clever because Jerry goes for a leapfrog, but it's like a fake out because then Nigel ducks down and then Jerry lands right into position and then snaps it off so quick and hits Nigel with the pile driver and gets the win. So like you, I would have liked to see Nigel win, but it seems like they're trying to build the prestige of the pure title. I mean, AJ Styles is the first champion, who's probably the biggest star they have, like from a global standpoint. And then Jerry Lynn's a legend in his own right. So having those two face off, or CM Punk's, he's also in the picture. So Nigel's going to get his moment with this title, but I guess they're just trying to use bigger stars at this point to get it over. So,
oh, for sure. No, I thought it was, you know, I honestly almost forgot about this match, but to think about this match, you know, we talked about like what matches we thought were the best on this card earlier. But I will say, in my view and the way I love professional wrestling and how I feel, like this match was still a lot of fun, and it probably was one of my favorites on the card to see. You know, like I said, it was just a lot of fun, and it wasn't even that long of a match. So, I mean, anybody listening to this show, when you do post this, I mean, if you ever get a chance and you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend it because it was fun.
Yeah, the pacing was a bit weird because they opened up with that, you know, shootout barn burner 6-man, and then they had like a run of singles matches, which neither had a ton of heat to them. Like none were like bad per se, but it just kind of felt a little monotonous. But I guess we'll keep plugging at it. But speaking of plugging, the ring announcer here after that match starts plugging like show dates or DVDs or whatever the hell. So he's on the mic, but he's interrupted by The Solution. You big Solution guy?
I didn't know who the hell they were.
I only knew who they were because the little nameplate underneath. But I mean,
and then I found out who they were, and then I Google searched them. Like I tried to find them, and there's nothing on them. And I was like, "Oh, this is cool. Like, makes sense." Nobody ever.
Yeah, no, because so earlier on this day, there was another show, which I believe was called Do or Die 2, because they had a Do or Die the previous year. But it was kind of like a show for the lesser known guys, a show for the newer guys. So we saw a few highlights on this show. But there was like a whole card full of younger guys, and these guys were on it apparently. I know I didn't watch it. Maybe I will at some point, but The Solution is a tag team of two guys who, you know what? You said they didn't even appear on Google.
Dudes. They were two Buffy Jack dudes, it looked like, unless they were fat and I wasn't really paying attention.
I mean, I wouldn't say jacked. They were like, you know, let's see here. Solution. We got names on these fellas. I mean, they're like the jack dude at your local gym. You know what I mean? They're not like super menacing.
They're not like AJ Styles Jack now. They're like, hey, let me go to the gym after I eat like a crave case from White Castle.
Yeah, they're like
Sheamus now.
Yeah. So apparently they wrestled as a team until August of 2006. So not a huge run for them. But there's still time, I guess. But we bring them up because
to not even hear anything from them before ever. So,
well, they got their asses kicked by the ring crew here, so maybe that was the start of their fading into obscurity. Because Dunn and Marcos, which I don't know how familiar you are with these guys, but they're part of the ring crew, but they've become kind of a cult favorite in Ring of Honor at this point.
Yeah.
They're a ring crew, but they also wrestle, so they're not just fucking the ring crew. But they're out there. They're tightening the ropes after the last match. The Solution come out, and they're like, look, we had the best card, or we had the best match on the card earlier today, and how come we're not booked on this one? And then the crowd's chanting Dunn and Marcos, and then the Solution's like, maybe we should just kiss management's ass like the Ring Crew Express. And then the Ring Crew Express, Dunn and Marcos, are like, hey, we're not going to take it anymore. And then Twisted Sister plays, and then the musical beatdown happens.
Yeah, I was dying during that. Like, I'm like, they're really playing this song, and like they're doing all these moves and stuff in the ring, and we're not gonna take it. And I'm like, hell yeah, they're not gonna take it. Look at these little munchkins destroy these big fucking dudes.
Dude, kicking their ass while doing the air guitar while music's playing. I mean, how do you come back from that? They're more of like
in the Great Khali. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. You know, there's no solution for that, huh?
There's not. I mean, that was a very interesting standing point, though. I mean, but I'm going to say this. I mean, I did look up both teams after this, little interaction, because I've never heard of either one of them before this segment. And I was like, well, there's more on the in-ring crew express or whatever their name is than there is on the solution, which is very sad, because the way that these solution dudes were built, you could have seen that they could have possibly had a fun run, but nothing about them anywhere. And I'm like,
they were they were very of the WWE ilk, though, at this point, which I don't think the Ring of Honor crowd did not want. So that's probably why. Just guys in singlets, moderately jacked guys in singlets. Like, we have enough of them on UPN or whatever the fuck.
At the time, yes.
Spike TV.
WGN. One of the three.
Well, after that, we got old John Walters versus Matt Striker with a Y, not that Matt Striker. And this is for the #1 contendership for the... Well, it's actually just the #1 contendership, and apparently you get to choose which title you're #1 contender for, which is a bit contrived and stupid. But the match itself was fine. Two guys that were like just technical wrestlers that kind of got over just based on their in-ring work, but now they're trying to find their footing as characters. And this match to me didn't really do much for that, but it was fine. Like I said, it was just another singles match that was pretty good. And it had stakes to it, which is fine, but I don't know. What'd you think about it?
For sure. So like you said, not that Matt Striker, but a different Matt Striker. And yes. I remember back in the day when I would Google search Matt Striker, because like when I would make my wrestlers, like I liked Matt Striker, the other Matt Striker. Like I was a fan of his. This Matt Striker would always come up, and I'm like, I never want to watch this dude with a unibrow. Like,
how dare
don't
you
put him on my TV. Like, never. So I never had interest in watching him. So this was the first time I actually watched him perform. And I was very impressed, actually, surprisingly. I was like, this is actually, I want to go actually watch his other matches because I was very impressed. Back in the day, like I said, I knew Ring of Honor existed at like 2005, 2006 mark. When WWE had it in the newspaper, Ric Flair, we already went through this. I don't have to do it again. But I remember back in 2011, there was a show called Lucha Libre USA. And it was a bunch of these wrestlers, like Paul London was under a mask, which TJ Perkins ended up taking over that role, just like he did with Suicide on TNA and Turn to Manic. I feel like any guy under a mask, if they stop, TJ Perkins just takes over.
Slide him right in there.
Which I love TJ, so it works. But anyway, so John Walters I was familiar with during this match because he was on that show. And he was like one of their top stars. So I've known who John Walters is probably since 2011. And he's one of those guys who I think has retired and come back twice or three times now too. But very, very athletic in that ring. Some of the stuff he does is fun to watch. I mean, like you said, it was more of a mat game match because both of these are more grapplers and, ground based than high flying for sure. But this match was great. Matt Striker, that sexy unibrow, like I said, you can't get past that. I feel like if he ever was to win a championship, he needed to shave it as a celebration, but I don't think he ever had that happen. Yeah, it makes him, I mean, that's his character work, his unibrow. If he could have made that dance or something, perfect seller. I bet you he can. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a very fun back and forth match. I mean, during this match, I thought John Walters was the one that really had the match in his palm. Like, I thought he had this because he had the upper hand on the most part, at least to my knowledge. Unless we watched a different match and I missed something. But John Walters had this match, I thought, in the back of his hand. I thought he killed it. But another singles match that really just was, I felt like having a singles match after singles match after singles match after singles match, having all those singles matches at Raw kind of made you kind of like, come on, just want something new. Like, give me something fun. Give me something to bring.
Give me like a hardcore match. Give me a tag team match. Give me a triple threat.
I feel like this could have been that, because I feel like these two could have just beat the shit out of each other, and one of them could have threw each other through a table. Like, you could have done something fun here.
Or, the match we'll talk about here in a little bit, the street fight type of match. You could have thrown that in between somewhere. Like, it was just a weird assortment of how these matches were ordered. But
I mean, hey, you know what? It is what it is. Ring of Honor is just finding their footing, trying to figure out match cards and shit like that. I won't take it with anything, but this was a great match. I thought it was great. Just the stuff they were doing in the ring was fun. It was a back and forth. Like I said, in my opinion, John Walters did have the upper hand most of the match. But Stryker was fun to watch, and that was my first experience ever experiencing him in the ring. And I think this really was a great one to put me on to him as a in-ring performer. So I think now, after knowing who he is and what he did in the ring during this match, I'm going to go back and research him, because I think he really was fun to watch in that time period. I don't know what he's doing now. I don't know if he's retired. I don't know if he still wrestles.
I've seen he's appeared a few times as like a judge for the Pure title, like recently for Ring of Honor. I don't know if he's still doing that, or he's still around.
I'll have to check it out, because I mean, like I said, that unibrow, just something scared me about him, and I just never wanted to watch him. And now it's just kind of like, okay, I'm gonna have to check him out, because this was really cool and a good showing to see for my first experience with him. I will say the opposite for Slick Wagner Brown. I will not do the same thing. It was my first experience with him too.
Slick taking strays.
Yeah, he can sit on the sidelines for me. He did nothing for me. Matt Stryker was really cool. I like this Matt Stryker better than I like the other one.
Yeah, in ring for sure, definitely.
Ring. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this dude talks, but Matt Stryker, the other Matt Stryker, is a good talker. I'll give him that. But
they definitely have some sort of stock in Matt Stryker. I mean, he won this match and is now the #1 contender for the world title. So obviously they see something in him, and he has, he's organically kind of gained a following over the past year or two just off of having good matches. This match, John Walters, kind of the same too. This match was just kind of fine for what it was, but
I mean, we seen Walters pass out in this match. I mean, that's how Stryker ended up getting the win.
So Walters at some point locks in Matt Stryker's submission, the Stryker lock.
Yep.
But Matt's able to get out of it, and then John Walters goes for his Hurricane DDT, but then Stryker counters and locks in his Stryker lock, his own. But John Walters does not tap out; he passes out. So I mean, I see what they're doing here. John Walters looks good. Matt Stryker gets the win, but ultimately, it was a match that happened. So but
it happened. I mean, we can't change anything about it. It happened.
Unfortunately,
it wasn't. I did thoroughly enjoy it though, so I can't talk too much shit because I did like it.
I'm happy for you. Well, we got something a little different here coming up next. We got The Prophecy, represented by BJ Whitmer and Dan Moff, versus the Second City Saints, represented by Ace Steel and Colt Cabana. So this has been one of the main storylines at this point in Ring of Honor. It's the Prophecy versus the Saints. The Prophecy being led by Christopher Daniels, and the Saints being led by CM Punk. So it's been like gang warfare kind of stuff, which you could probably tell from this match, as it pretty much broke down right away. There wasn't a lot of tagging in this one. I'll say this. It's kind of broke down as a brawl to the outside right away. Tracy Brooks is with the Saints. Allison Danger is with the Prophecy, and they even fight at some point, which if any pair of women fight in 2004, it's a cat fight. I think that's the rule.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, there were some fun double teams early on. Like they did kind of have a wrestling match here in the beginning. Like the Prophecy, they hit this lariat German suplex combo. The Saints, I think Colt like spins Ace Steel around and whips him into the corner. So there was some fun stuff in the beginning. Dan Moff does a suicide dive into the crowd, which is nuts. But ultimately, chairs start getting involved. People are fighting in the crowd. BJ Whitmer tosses the ref out the way, and then ref has to ring the bell. It's a no contest. But the story, I mean, that's not really the story here. The story is that they continue to fight. The locker room empties, which is not something that they've really done in Ring of Honor up to this point. I mean, the ring was full. I mean, there was so many people out there. And but I thought this angle it looked pretty good. I mean, you kind of got the sense that these two teams hated each other, and that's kind of what you want here, right? So I thought this was fine for what it was.
I think the continuation of their story, if it does continue after this, which I'm sure it does, I think it's going to be great because the way that they did this, it just seemed like they were just at war, which was a lot of fun. Like you just mentioned, Dan Maff with that suicide dive. Is it Maff or Maff? Because I know Maff.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
The math checks out.
Maff checks out. That suicide dive that he hit though was so smooth. And like it was just so cool to see that. I mean, you knew damn well when that barricade got pushed forward to the ring, he was going to clear the shit out of that.
Which I think is kind of cheating. You know, I think if you're going to dive into the crowd, make the leap. You know what I'm saying?
Bigger guy, I feel like he was.
But all right, we don't need to push the barricade up against the ring, you know?
Yeah, it makes him look weaker. Makes him look not as fun. You know, dude, he probably wanted to just get home and eat something, you know?
That's not very nice.
I'm sorry. That was rude.
Are you insinuating that he's a large gentleman?
I apologize, Dan Maff. BJ Whitmer out there beating the shit out of people, just like he does backstage. You know, Colt Cabana. I mean, I can't take Colt Cabana seriously. So
no, there's no tomfoolery here. You heard Punk earlier. There's no shenanigans or hijinks in this one.
And I'm not taking anything from Colt Cabana because I love Colt Cabana. I mean, in his own way. I mean, he's fun. People do shit on him, you know, whatever. I don't care. I've been a fan of Colt Cabana. Boom, boom.
He's great.
Colt Cabana. Boom, boom. Sorry, I had to do that once. Yeah, I mean, Ace Steel did not bite anybody here.
I'm sure he bit somebody among the chaos. He had to bite at least one person, right?
Well, I mean, maybe you should clip this part because I do have a question for people. I mean, if anybody was in the crowd during this show, right? If anybody was in the crowd or anybody was backstage, did Ace Steel really bite somebody during this match? Like, did he bite somebody in the crowd? Like, was this his first biting experience? Right. Because once you're a biter, you're always a biter. And I don't think the time he bit somebody in AEW was the first. He had to have bit somebody before.
Are you speaking from experience?
I think so. I was bitten by Ace Steel.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask if you were a biter, but no, you got bit by Ace Steel. That makes more sense.
Yeah. That would have been fun if I would have continued and got really sad about it and emotional and just broke down on the show about Ace Steel biting me. But
you
know,
gave you a disease of some sort.
Gave me the Steel disease. Yes.
Yes.
It was the Steel disease. I ended up turning into Shaquille O'Neal from the Man of Steel.
What? Oh, I see.
Terrible joke. It was like when a spider bit Peter Parker and he turned into Spider-Man. It was like.
See, I thought you were thinking of Magic Johnson. I thought you were getting the wrong AIDS guy.
No, Shaquille O'Neal for sure.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Man of Steel or whatever the hell it was called.
There's Man of Steel, which is Superman.
So it was Steel. Yeah,
okay.
So Shaquille O'Neal, he played this like superhero role in this movie, and like he built like this little suit of armor made of steel, like whatever, and he would go around being a vigilante and shit with this fucking suit.
Sounds fucking terrible.
You know, so yeah, so I just made a terrible joke, you know, about it. I wish you would have seen the movie. It would have been brilliant if you did. Hold
on, wait, say the joke again.
So. Ace Steel bit me, you know, at some point, and that's why I turned into Shaquille O'Neal as the Steel guy. the Man of Steel, because Peter Parker got bitten by a spider. He's Spider-Man. I got bitten by a steel and then the steel. It's a terrible joke. I'll shut up for 5 seconds. I think my Diesel joke when we did the Kevin Nash match from months ago was better than this. I'm losing.
What was the Diesel joke? I forget.
Because when he was Diesel and then he came back, I said he was unleaded because he lost his gas. And it was like silent for a second, and then you got the joke. You actually clipped it and posted it in your TikTok. It was a good joke, I thought, at that time, but went over the head for a second. I thought this one was a good one too, but you had to be there.
Can you hear the crickets?
I do. I actually just hear my fan behind me, but crickets are close second.
I see.
I see. But end of the day though, terrible joke, terrible match. It's okay.
So it's their fault, is what you're saying. It's
yes.
Dan Moff's fault that
it's Dan Moff's fault. Yeah, because I feel like if he actually would have just dove over the barricade, none of this would have come up.
Hopefully he does it at some point.
Hopefully he does it at some point. So anybody that does watch the show, I'm sorry for making a terrible joke. It's Dan Moff's fault.
Well, it's not Dan Moff's fault that Ricky Steamboat's here because
direction.
I don't know. Ricky Steamboat's here. He's a special guest referee for the Pure Championship. The first ever defense of this piece of leather. We got the champion defending against the champion. AJ Styles is his name. Defending against CM Punk. So this is a rematch of the finals of the Pure tournament that crowned AJ the winner. But there were some dubious not dubious. It was just a controversial finish. Because in pure wrestling matches, which this is, there are 3 rules. So there's a 20 count on the outside of the ring. No closed fists. And you get 3 rope breaks within a match. And once you use them all, then you can't use the rope to escape moves.
Yes.
But there was a point in their first match where CM Punk was just kind of like pushed up against the ropes at some point. And then the referee deemed that a rope break. And that ended up costing him because he got pinned with his foot on the rope, and that would have been broken up had he had a rope break, but he didn't have it was the whole thing. We spoke about it at the last episode. But we're here. Ricky Steamboat is not going to make that mistake because of his history of pure matches, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know.
He's the purest of them all.
I guess. Who would be more pure than Ricky Steamboat?
Rico?
Pure. Rico. Mordecai. Mordecai is very pure. He wears white.
After Labor Day, too, which is surprising.
Yeah, that's bold. That's bold. Well, anyways, Mordecai's not here. Although I do think he might be this might be Mordecai era, though, which is a very small window. So that'd be impressive. But Rico's not here either, to your point. But
yes,
the match, this might be my favorite match of the night. Perhaps.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 100%. This is very different than the steel cage matches that follow. So it's hard to even compare them on the same scale.
Yes.
But, I mean, this is another singles match, but this one felt like it had another gear to it. Yes. The storytelling and the alluding to the rope breaks from the previous match and alluding to previous finishes, which you may not have noticed because you haven't been watching these, but they played to previous matches. So I thought this was great. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it, though.
Oh, I thought it was a fun one. I really, like you said, match of the night to me as well. And we'll definitely talk about something here. I don't want to just jump the gun. But there was a part in this match that I was very annoyed about, and I think Punk was very annoyed about too. Talking
about the hand hitting the mat.
Yep.
Yeah.
That mat, it hit the mat, bro. It hit the mat. Right. How do you let it hit the mat and then turn around and be like, oh, never mind, he lifted it back up after it already touched the ground and he's good.
Right.
We're good.
We'll just leading up to that, we'll just kind of set the scene here. So they get underway. A lot of chain wrestling in the beginning, as you might expect from a pure wrestling match. But then all of a sudden, AJ gets his fire behind him. He starts chopping the shit out of Punk. Punk fires back with a boot. So the way they like kind of brought it down, or they started down and they brought it up and then kind of did that, made it feel really dramatic. It made it feel like it meant something.
You could tell there was a story there. 100%. You could tell there was that chemistry that, you know, they had this rivalry, and it felt like the first one. You know, well, I shouldn't say first one, because the tag match felt like there was that heat, that rivalry to it as well. But this felt like a legit big fight feel. And I thought it was brilliant. Like you said, I mean, it started with chain wrestling. And then they started doing like, you know, their top of the line, like, you know, AJ Styles, CM Punk type shit. And I mean, back then it was something special, because you didn't see that anywhere else really, other than when you watched AJ Styles in TNA.
Yeah. And so at this point in time, CM Punk's finisher is the Shining Wizard. And in their, I don't know if it was their previous match or their first one. By the way, AJ's won both of their matches they've had against each other in Ring of Honor. In one of those matches, Punk went for the Shining Wizard. AJ caught him right into a Styles clash, and that's what got the win. And they kind of called back to that in this match. Punk goes for the Wizard. AJ catches him, but Punk now rolls through it and hits his own Styles clash, which if you're picturing CM Punk doing a Styles clash, that's what it looked like. It wasn't the prettiest. It was not phenomenal. It was good. I'll say that. I won't give him a bad. It was okay. But that does not get the win.
Wasn't the best.
No, he didn't hit it with proper form, which is why it did not get the win.
Yes.
But at some point, I believe AJ loses all his rope breaks, right?
Yep.
Which, by the way, noting that like earlier in the match, before he used any rope breaks, Punk had a camel clutch on AJ. AJ was close enough to grab the ropes, and he almost does, but then he decides not to because he knows it's going to exhaust a rope break. So them figuring, because these rules are very new, so to watch them kind of figure this out in real time is very interesting. Yeah. But eventually he uses all his rope breaks, and at some point CM Punk has him in a sleeper hold in the ropes, but he has no more rope breaks, so he can't do anything about it. AJ begins to fade. He's on the mat. He's down. Punk's got this sleeper clinched up. Ricky Steamboat grabs AJ's wrist, pulls it up, drops it. 1, picks it up, drops it. 2, picks it up, drops it, hits the mat. Ricky sees this and is like, well, I guess I'll slowly turn around and call for the... But oh no, he's moving his hand. Yep. He's moving his hand a little bit. Which I agree. I was very annoyed by this because it's not, you can't after the fact. I don't know. Ricky was a little slow on the draw here. And I think I was going to ask you, do you think Punk was screwed here? And I think, yes, clearly he was.
Oh yeah.
Again,
Punk was literally cheated out of this match. That's like, you know, if you're married, right? And you go out with your friends and you get drunk and you meet this girl, right? And, you know, she's not your wife or whatever. And you end up being, you know, a slutty guy, and you end up taking this girl home, right? And you put the tip in, and then you're like, oh no, what did I do? That's like this, you know, you can't take it back. It happened. Like,
you're saying that Ricky the Dragon Steamboat's shoddy referee officiating in a pro wrestling match is the same thing as if I were to go stick my wiener in a dame?
Yes, 100%. Here's the thing. AJ Styles was the mistress here. CM Punk was the husband, and Ricky Steamboat was the wife. And he turned around, seeing the mistress go down, and he's like, this is over. This is a divorce. And then AJ Styles is like, no, I'm here. Like, it was terrible. Just dumb. It was the dumbest shit I've ever seen in pro wrestling. I'm very upset about it. No, I shouldn't say it's the dumbest. There's worse, like the Great Khali. But
I think it all made sense ultimately, though, because like AJ, he fires up, gets out of the sleeper, fights back, wins the match with a discus lariat, which I thought was interesting. I mean, it looked good. I'd never seen him use it as a finisher before.
Right, me neither. And that's why I was confused because I mean, I guess pure matches they use different finish, but doesn't make sense because
I think he also, maybe in the kayfabe sense, had to utilize a different finisher because Punk had the Styles Clash scouted, and it's not current day AJ where he has like 10 finishers. He had to like bust out something new, which was this, and it looked convincing. So I wasn't mad about it. But
I mean, it was a very, very smooth discus clothesline. I mean,
he does everything smooth.
I won't take anything away from it. And I love a good discus, but I mean, this was probably one of the smoother ones I've ever seen.
Yeah, and so the reason I say this all makes sense with the sleeper in the hand and the what have you, the mistress.
Mistress.
CM Punk grabs the mic after the match. It says he was robbed once again, and he demands an apology from Ricky Steamboat. Ricky says no, or I don't even know if he said anything. He just kind of started walking away. Punk grabs him, begins to assault the dragon, but the dragon then arm drags the shit out of CM Punk, hits him with the, what do you call
chop,
this?
Double chop.
Karate chop, but it's like a Dragon Ball Z, like, whoa!
Like a sideways Mongolian chop. Like
Mongolian chop. Those damn Mongolians taking out my shitty wall. Huh?
The top, but I don't
Oh,
know.
side Mongolian.
Yeah, so maybe that's a Mongolian.
Mongolian. No.
Mongolian? I don't know, dude. But you did miss a part, though, because right before that happened, Joe comes out and Styles and Punk shake hands, right? After the match, they shook hands.
Right.
And then Joe comes out. They have this Styles Joe thing, and Punk's just sitting in the corner just watching this happen. And then after they leave, then Punk turns around after he just shook Styles' hand and was like, oh, calm and cool and collected. He's like, I was robbed. And like, it was like just so much going on. And I'm like, dude, like the segment should have been over. Like you just did so much. If you were going to have Punk shake Styles' hand, you should have did it like, and not did the Ricky Steamboat thing or one or the other. Like you
got Ricky Steamboat. You got to have him throw an arm dragger too, you know?
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I would have loved a crossbody, but hey, I'll take what I can get.
Yeah, you're gonna have to wait till WrestleMania 25 for that, pal. So
yeah, I know. Sad. 5 years later. Oh well. We'll see what happens.
Pretty good. It was pretty good for some reason. It shouldn't have been, but it was good.
Should not have been, but yeah, it was all right. Yeah, but no, I mean, then Punk was outside, like selling it, like that was the hardest thing he's ever taken. Like that Mongolian chop just hurt my entire chest. Like,
I mean, it's a Ricky Steamboat side Mongolian, you know?
That's fair. That's fair.
Devastating. Does he have a finisher, Ricky Steamboat, or does he just win all his matches with roll-ups?
Roll-ups.
Yeah, you can't just roll him up. There's no
and
record.
The crossbody, I think. The crossbody, too, but
yeah.
I think his son did the same thing, though. Like, when his son was in FCW, I think he was just winning his matches with roll-ups.
Richie Steamboat?
Richie Steamboat.
It's too close. It's too close. You gotta be like...
He had so much potential, though. I give him so much credit because he was going to be something special, and then injuries.
Whatever happened to him? Just injuries?
Yeah.
Richie Steamboat. What are the odds that Ricky just comes out? Oh, no, it's Richie. Wow, he looks like Adam Cole and Mason Ryan had a baby.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Wait, his last name's Blood? That's the actual last name of Ricky Steamboat? It's badass.
Is it?
Apparently,
just Blood?
Blood. Yeah, Richard Henry Blood. Fuck yeah, doggy. Let's get it. I don't know.
Ricky Steamboat was actually a murderer. And he murdered people so much, but that's why they had to change his name because it was just so violent and graphic that they were like, nope, can't do that. Let's go with something better. And oh, hey, Mickey Mouse has that toot toot in the beginning. It sounds like a steamboat. Oh, Ricky. Point. Oh, Steamboat.
Well, so his name's Richard Blood. Instead of calling him Ricky Steamboat, they could have called him Dick Blood.
I would have liked that. Dick Blood. Dick Blood and Dick Blood Jr.?
Ooh. Dick Blood.
Or a Weenie Blood.
That's fun. We're having a lot of fun here. But speaking of which, speaking of wieners, we got... Who do we got here? We got Hydro So we got some highlights from this Do or Die show, like I mentioned earlier. It was a show that happened in the afternoon, I guess, of lower card or just new guys. And we got some highlights of some of the matches, which we don't need to go in super detail. They were kind of just cut, it wasn't a lot to them. But some interesting names popped up. So we got Hydro, otherwise known as Jay Lethal, taking on Roddy Strong. Two guys that are currently in AEW in like pretty regular roles, which is hilarious. Roddy's kind of the same as he's always been. Hydro is just a part of Special K, but it's so clear that he's so much better than everybody else in that group. I don't know. Any thoughts on that one?
So Jay Lethal, well, Hydro, because that was his name at that point, comes out with Becky Bayless, who also had a very interesting name when she was in TNA.
What was her name?
Cookie.
Is it because?
And look, they got that slut Becky on the outside, Chris.
What was
She's a slut. Commentary always calls her that slut Becky.
That slut Becky. So did you watch her in TNA?
I don't think so, no.
So when Robbie E or Robert Stone went in WWE NXT or whatever, when he was in TNA, he had that Jersey Shore gimmick, and
right.
Becky Bayless was his valet, and she went by the name Cookie. So it was Robbie E. And
Cookie. I do
remember
remember this. Yeah.
So when I'm watching this match and here comes Becky Bayless with Hydro, I was like, man, they should have easily just called her Cookie back then, because you could have just called her Hydro Cookie, and it would have been such a fun experience.
It would have.
Hydro Cookie. And then people are like, yo, we can make that into a shirt. And it's like a cookie just fucking with water all around it. Like, I don't know. Terrible. My jokes today are just not on par.
We'll workshop that one. Don't worry.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. But yeah, I mean, the highlights of that match were fun because I think that was like early Jay Lethal, like very beginning. I think that was very early Roddy Strong too. I mean, he had stuff to work out too, especially his body, because he just looked like he just ate a bunch of cookies.
He was pretty. Was he pudgy here?
He looked pudgy, yeah. And I was like, damn, Roddy's in way better shape now than he was back then. Maybe
compared to, I mean, now he's like ripped to the gills. But
oh yeah, I mean, give me Roderick Strong's build now. I mean, that he was back then. Dude could have been like world champion constantly, like easily. I mean, Messiah the Backbreaker. Come on, you don't just call him that for nothing.
He was busting him out here too, even early on.
Oh yeah, but I mean, the highlights of that match make me want to kind of go back and watch the full match, because it just seems like it was a lot of fun. I mean, Jay Lethal versus Roderick Strong, early days. I mean, come on, who could ask for better?
Yeah, no, it looked like a good match. Probably one of the better matches of that card, if I had to guess. Or maybe it was Danny Daniels versus Austin Aries. Huh?
I didn't know who Danny Daniels was, but Austin Aries for sure.
I'll show you somebody. Not that Danny Daniels, by the way, if anybody's thinking of... are you familiar?
No.
Don't pretend like you're not familiar. Give Danny Daniels a Google and get back to me.
While you talk, I'll look this up.
All right, well, keep the camera up. So Austin Aries, she's a film star. I'll say.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it until I just said it out loud. But no, it's not that one that Austin Aries is wrestling.
It's a different Danny Daniels.
So this is the first appearance from Austin Aries in Ring of Honor, which is very interesting. The crowd, it's interesting to see him come out. Crowd doesn't know who he is. And Aries comes out. He's like, make some goddamn noise. Like, but not in like a fired up way. And like a, why aren't you reacting to me, assholes? Which is like,
I've been here for years.
Oh, he's a cocksucker, this Austin Aries. But Danny, because Danny, who gives a fuck who Danny Daniels is? He hits like a one-winged angel or like a two-winged angel at some point. But the ref doesn't count three, even though Austin Aries didn't kick out, which I thought was weird. Maybe he just had that pin on tight. I don't know. But Aries wins with like a crucifix driver into a Rings of Saturn, which looked pretty sick. But I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting to see like very early on Aries competing to no reaction when he goes on to be the one to dethrone Samoa Joe's current title reign. So it's interesting to see like where he is and where he would go on to be. So,
which was kind of funny to see that because, I mean, Aries looked good in the highlights for sure. Especially if that's his like first match in ROH and in front of a public view like that, like he nailed it. And I mean, I'm sorry for anybody that hates Austin Aries because I mean, yeah, he might be a douchebag, but he's an incredible wrestler. I can't take away from what he's done in the ring. You know, I think one of the greatest of all time to do it. You know, I think watching this highlight and really seeing what he could, you know, brought to the table in the beginning of ROH to where he took off in his career, absolutely fun to watch. And just to see his little highlight video really showcase that too. It's one of those other matches that I'm going to have to go back and watch because I mean, knowing that that was Austin's first ROH experience and being there. And like you said, knowing that months later down the road, he would be the one to defeat Samoa Joe for that title is crazy because Austin Aries just, I mean, being a newcomer and defeating the longest reigning ROH champion in still today in history, you know, is absolutely incredible. I mean, nobody can ever take that away from Aries ever.
Yeah. It's not even that long. It's just, it's like the end of this year, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's wild. Things change so fast, but speaking of Samoa Joe, speaking of Joey Samoa, he's defending his Ring of Honor World Championship in a steel cage match against Jay Briscoe. So we talked about this a little bit earlier with the obtuse amount of blood in this one.
Yep.
But just to lay a bit of backstory here. So Joe and the Briscoes have been feuding for quite a while now. They've been kind of going back and forth. Like Joe and Jay had a match a few months ago. Joe won. And then they'll have like a tag team match where it's the Briscoes defending their titles against Joe and a partner of his choosing. Joe loses every time. He's been pinned by Mark. And then Joe will go on to defend his singles title against Mark. So they've been going like back and forth. Like every time they've come 1-on-1 or 2-on-2, the champion always wins. So this is kind of, it feels like at least the blow off of this feud.
Yeah.
And in a steel cage. And geez, I mean, I've heard about this match, so I had kind of high expectations, but just on the brutality alone, I mean, this was, I mean, there's, because we talked about the clotting blood.
Yeah.
And like, just a pain, it's like, so Jay's whole face is covered in blood, but then there's like chunks of blood falling off his face. It's disgusting.
Like you see blood dripping from a wrestler's face when they're like face down or whatever. But like this was like sticky, hanging.
Because
like,
we're all desensitized to blood at this point, wrestling fans. So it's like, all right, the guy's bleeding, whatever. It's a steel cage match. You should bleed. But even the point where Joe does his face wash in the corner and the blood shoots out of the cage and then the camera pans down to the blood on the floor. It's like, Jesus Christ. The cinematography was fantastic here.
It was gross, dude. And you know what? I've seen the movie The Terrifier, and there's nasty scenes in those movies, like very gory, and people said that they've been in the movie theater and threw up watching those.
Yeah.
And that kind of shit doesn't bother me. This got me to where I was like, oh, God, gross. Like, holy fuck. Like, and I've been a pro wrestling fan for over 20 years, like, you know, since 2003. And like, I've seen blood in pro wrestling, and I'm like, you know, doesn't bother me. But this, just seeing blood just hanging, not just dripping, hanging, was like, oh God, why? Why are you like on that? Like, and they wouldn't turn the camera. Like, they're like, hey, watch this. It's like a fucking Christmas ornament dangling from his face. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
But brutal. I mean, this match was fucking insane. You know, and if this was what early Jay Briscoe was on, I get why he's had the career, or why he had the career he had, because man, this was just insane. I've never seen anything like it. You know, obviously the Briscoes have been through so much shit. I mean, from that and from the Fallen, when the Fallen hung them up and shit like that years later, or like, dude, like they've just gone through so much shit. But to watch this and how gruesome that was, like, Dude, maybe the Briscoes are probably the most violent tag team in professional wrestling history.
That's fair to say. No, it was. I mean, they're the MVPs of Ring of Honor at this point, as far as it's between them and Samoa Joe, and you got them all here. So
yes,
but it should also be said this isn't just like a bloodbath for the sake of blood. Like there's some good stuff here.
Well, because Joe didn't even bleed, I don't think, really.
It was hard to tell, man. You had so much of Jay's blood on him, so it's hard to tell if it was his or. But she also mentioned, so you can win this match by escape, which is not a stipulation that they've had in the cage matches so far. So, going back to the beginning, the bell rings and Jay immediately goes for the door to try to get out. Joe prevents it though. And then eventually, like we've mentioned, Jay gets busted open at some point, probably on the cage wall. Joe also hits Jay with a top rope back suplex that looked gnarly.
Yep.
But then Jay comes back with one of his own. Even hits a top rope cutter, which looked beautiful. Like, in modern times, it's like, oh, another top rope cutter. But this is probably the most like aesthetically pleasing one I've ever seen in my life.
We didn't see shit like that back then.
No.
Now it happens like every fucking, every match. Now, every match. You get that or a super kick. One of the two.
Right. And so, yeah, most of this match is Joe beating the shit out of Jay. But Jay does get a few moves in. He ends up hitting the Jay Driller at some point, which was just beautiful. Like the way it kind of came out of nowhere and gave you hope that Jay might win. But Jay had just lost so much blood that he couldn't follow up.
Yeah.
It's at this point where Mark Briscoe, who's on the outside, tries to climb into the cage, but AJ Styles comes out to stop him. I guess now AJ and Joe have respect for each other because they had to shake. So that's why AJ's here to stop. I don't know. But he rips Mark off the cage, catches him into a powerbomb position, and hits him with the Styles Clash on the floor, which looked pretty brutal, sounded pretty brutal.
Yep. And he just got up with confidence right after. He's like, yeah, I did that.
And then inside the ring, Jay is trying to escape. He gets to the top rope, but Samoa Joe stops him and hits him with a gnarly-looking top rope muscle buster. And clearly, that gets the win. So Joe retains.
Which has to probably be one of the sickest bumps I've ever seen in pro wrestling. Because the muscle buster is such a I mean, look what had happened to Tyson Kidd. I mean, it put him on the shelf, almost killed him. The muscle buster, unless you know exactly how you're selling it, is very dangerous. Very dangerous. And I mean, doing it from the top rope like that inside of a steel cage. Luckily, you had the steel cage to kind of like balance your back off of and stuff to get it kind of in a smoother positioning. And that's probably why Samoa Joe really hasn't hit it since then, because he doesn't have a cage behind him every single match. But I mean, dude, the bump Jay Briscoe took, I mean, holy fuck. I mean, incredible.
On top of all the blood he's lost, just insane.
Yeah, I mean, dude, if I got a scratch on my fucking finger and I had to take a bump like that, I'd be like, no, thanks, I'm good.
Yeah, no, you are a pussy. We all agree.
Thank you. I'll be here all day.
But so Joe wins, and now he's officially been champion for 1 year. And he grabs the mic, tells Jay to get up, which I think is a bit rude. Give the boy a chance to rest, maybe. I don't know. But Joe is basically like, look, a lot of people didn't respect you. A lot of people didn't think you belonged in a world title match or in the main event. And I was one of those people, but God damn it, I'm not anymore. So Jay's earned his respect. Good stuff here. They shake hands. Feuds. They wrap up that feud, I suppose. But then Samoa Joe leaves. He opens the door to the cage, and I guess the door hits AJ, and then they face off. Now they hate each other again because of a door hit. I don't know. It's all.
The whole show started. Joe's like, "Fuck you, Styles," and then him and Styles are like, "Let's shake hands." And then Styles comes out, saves Samoa Joe from getting double teamed from Mark Briscoe climbing up the rope. Then a door hits Styles, and Styles is like,
"They're very sensitive."
A door hit me. And that's probably why AJ Styles had to go and get Buffer, because a door almost broke him. And That's where we're at. When you almost get killed by a door, you have to bulk up.
That's why it's all 20 years earlier. He's like, that door hit me that one time. Now I gotta stick a needle in my ass. That's I'm with you.
Long-term storytelling, I think 101. I did want to ask you, like, so based off of this, because the way they were doing it, the way it made no sense, was the Briscoes heel at this time, or were they the faces?
It's a great question. So they, I didn't really mention this because he wasn't here, but they have aligned with Jim Cornette. So this was several months before this. Jim Cornette came to Ring of Honor. Samoa Joe came out, and it was basically like Cornette was going to manage Samoa Joe, but then Cornette turns on Joe and aligns with the Briscoes, and the Briscoes gang up on Joe. But it's also like, is Joe a face or a heel? Like it's very unclear. But the Briscoes have been acting more heelish, but not to the extent to where people are booing them. So it's neither Joe or Briscoes have a defined kind of spot, in my opinion. It's a little fluid
at this point.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I think the Briscoes are especially after this match. I mean, they got to be full blown babyface, I would say.
Right.
Plus, in the match, Jay was kind of being a chicken shit a little bit, trying to run away. So he was definitely more the heel in this match, but I think he just, with how it played out, he came out looking good.
For the beginning base of the match, I mean, the door was pretty much open the entire time. Mark was kind of holding it, and then Joe was like, "Fuck this door," and then
he locks it, by the way. Gets a padlock and locks it up. So,
which is why Mark had to climb the cage later on, and look what happened to him.
Look what happened. Well,
it was very special, you know.
No, yeah, that was. I mean, that's definitely you could say that's match of the night easily. It's just that and the pure title match, very different matches, but both great.
Oh yeah.
Or maybe it's the main event, which, it happened yet. It's actually this one. They already have that steel cage set up. Might as well have a second one. It's a scramble steel cage 8-man tag. We got the Carnage Crew versus Special K. This was a match where I just turned my brain off and just let it seep into my pores through osmosis. I mean, this was just, how do you even, I'll just lay out the backstory here. So Carnage Crew, again, I don't know how familiar you are with these guys, but you can probably tell they're just blue collar. The way they wear jeans and t-shirts.
Yep.
They go to their day job. They punch in, they punch out, they come home, they beat their wives, they come here and they wrestle. And then you got Special K.
And then they have a drink afterwards.
Yeah, or two.
Yeah.
Then you have Special K, who are these high school, early college kids that have, rich parents, and they do E and ecstasy or whatever 2004 drugs they're doing.
Yep.
And so they have polar opposite lifestyles. Naturally, they're going to come to blows, and they've been feuding for several months at this point. And again, I would assume this is the blow off. I don't know how you can build off of this, but Special K's won every single match they've had, whatever like variations of matches through just the numbers game. There's so many of these Special K guys. And also, by the way, one of the Special K guys, Angel Dust, I guess abducted DeVito's wife or girlfriend, or no, daughter. DeVito, member of Carnage Crew.
Yep.
Angel Dust, member of Special K, took DeVito's daughter and gave her drugs and did whatever else. I don't know. But
like a high school guy would do. Yes.
Yeah, classic. So there's a personal layer to this. But the match itself, I mean, it's just, Jesus Christ. It's just brutality. It's kendo sticks. It's a lot of people in that ring. A lot of people. They tried to do it like War Game style, where it started off one-on-one, and then they do intervals, and then people would come in, but eventually it just broke down. And
yep.
I don't know. What'd you make of this?
So we said it was a 8-man tag. It was more like 16-on-4. So interesting enough, because I feel like every time I'm on the show, I have to try to get myself canceled somehow, some way. So it wouldn't be the show if I didn't try to cancel myself. Angel Dust, giving DeVito's daughter, drugs and stuff and shit like that. takes me back to my day when I used to give other people's daughter drugs and shit. So I get it.
Okay.
You know?
I don't co-sign that, but
you know, I get it, man. I've been there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I was that girl.
You were that girl.
Yeah, you gave drugs to me.
Remember back in the day? That was before. That was when you were Kylette.
No, I don't think so.
Oh.
I don't think so. I think it was just full blown Kyle. You had me.
Shit, maybe I was too fucked up and don't remember.
That's probably it.
But thanks, Kyle. I appreciate you being here since high school.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, I mean, interesting, like you said. I mean, it started off like a War Games type thing where one by one. And then like when the third member of, what was it, Carnage Crew got announced, then fucking one of the dudes from fucking Special K started climbing up the side of the cage and got up top, and then one of the dudes from Carnage Crew, I don't know these guys' names because it's all chaotic at this point. You know, I don't know who's who at this point. Like, I know who they are if you showed me a picture of them, but everybody's everywhere at this point. So one of the dudes from Carnage Crew comes in, brings in a ladder, which makes no sense in a steel cage match, but hey, whatever. Brings in a ladder, puts it up top, climbs the fucking steel cage where they have like at the corners these like not barricades, but like platform type things.
Yeah.
Which really annoyed me at this spot because what was his name? It was one of the dudes from it was Izzy from Special K and Masada. They're both on top here.
Yes.
Izzy goes for a drop salt, doesn't even touch Masada. His feet does not even touch him. Masada, or then he does like the moonsault, lands on everybody on the outside. Cool. I mean, that part was cool, hitting the moonsault on everybody. But then Masada's on top, and he's like, whoa! And that falls.
The wind blew him over, man.
Yeah.
I didn't even gather that it was an attempt at a drop salt until commentary said it. I thought he just did a moonsault, and then Masada fell. Like, I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah, it was terrible because his feet didn't even touch him. And then he's like, oh, shit, I was supposed to sell this. And then falls back. You know, cool bump, I guess. You know, landed backwards.
Just a straight flat back from the top of a cage. That's crazy.
Right. The announcers call the woman from Special K the Special K sluts, which is very interesting. It makes me feel like if I go to the Circle K gas station, would I find Circle K sluts?
Are there still Circle Ks around?
Yeah, I got a couple, I think.
Wait, is that the same as Kmart?
Maybe. I don't know, but there is a Circle K right by me, and it is a gas station. But like, I haven't seen sluts there. I have seen sluts at Kmart, but that was awesome when my mom was shopping there, and she's the biggest slut of them all. Sorry, Mom, love you. But anyway, back. Yeah. So the Slim J, was he a part? Like, is he the Slim J that was a part of AEW? Is it the same Slim J, or is that a different Slim J?
Yep. The same exact Slim J. Yes, it is.
Same guy. Okay, interesting. So he looks the same. Then like just the fucking cut off or wife beater and the fucking short. You know, Slam Master J was better. I did like him better when it was Jesse and he turned into that, but hey, whatever. The ending was really cool. I did like the ending spot. That was probably one of the coolest endings I've seen. Very dangerous. It could have gone very brutal. And very, you know, somebody could have went to prison for that for sure.
That was the most insane pile driver I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Number one. Crazy.
You know, so, you know, I want, if it's cool, can I take this one?
Please. Lay it all over my face.
They have all this shit going on. Dusty Rhodes comes out and all this shit. It's chaotic as fuck.
Okay, let's not just glaze over fucking Dusty Rhodes coming out and here and inserting himself. By the way, here comes Ox Baker back. Finally, Dusty and Ox come to blows because you're looking at fucking Carnage Crew versus Special K, kendo sticks, chairs. People are diving off the cage. People are taking bumps onto the floor, onto the mat. There's tables, there's chair, there's blood, there's jeans, baggies, pants, bandanas.
And then there's an Ox and a Rhodes.
And there's Dusty Rhodes and Ox Baker get in there and start, and they probably get the biggest pop of the fucking match.
Yes,
so, but yes, continue.
This match was just chaotic, and then Dusty comes in and he's like, "I'm Dusty Rhodes," and then fucking Ox Baker's like, "Shut your fucking lispy ass up! I'm gonna beat the shit out of you," with this little fucking curly fucking Q mustache and all this shit. But anyway, so Angel Dust is at the top of this fucking platform on the one of the sides of the cage, and they're all setting this shit up. They put in 2 tables into the ring, stack them on top of each other. I don't know why, but these tables look like they're longer tables than a normal pro wrestling table.
Could be.
You know, they're on the top of this thing, sets him up like he's gonna do like some power bomb, but now he's like, fuck this power bomb. I'm gonna pile drive the shit out of this guy from the top of the steel cage through 2 tables, hitting the fucking ground, getting a pinfall. And I'm like, when he's about to do it, I'm like, there's no fucking way.
He's probably gonna do a superplex, maybe a choke slam, a full blown pile driver,
and goes through both like nothing happens, and like then just pins him 1, 2, 3, gets up like nothing happened. Like Angel Dust is probably dead. I haven't heard from him ever since. Don't know if he still wrestles. Don't know if he's still alive. That would have killed me. I'm not a pro wrestler though, so I get it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have killed you. I'm sure it would have killed anybody that's listening to this show.
Landed it perfectly though, like you said, as safe as it could have been, but also looking devastating. Like it couldn't have been hit more perfect.
You look at it back in the day when Austin took the pile driver and broke his neck, and that was just the sitting down version of a pile driver. This motherfucker was on top of a steel cage through 2 tables and still managed to fucking do it perfectly.
Right.
Which is probably one of the most chaotic things I've ever seen in pro wrestling. And I've seen people fall from a fucking banister where New Jack almost killed somebody. So, you know, end of the day, I mean, murder happens in pro wrestling all the time. Maybe that's probably why they were called the Carnage Crew, because they kill people. You did say they beat their wives, so I get it.
According to them,
they don't have any kind of like love or compassion for life. They don't give a fuck, and this really showed it. But all in all, that was a good way to end the show. Very fun, very surprising. If they didn't get the 1, 2, 3 on that and it didn't end like that, I would have never watched ROH again. Like,
when I looked at the card, I was puzzled to see this was the main event over Joe versus Jay for the world title, but seeing how this ended, and even that beer bash with Dusty at the end, like this, and like I said, this is a long drawn out feud. So with all of that in mind, it makes sense. But if they
didn't do that pile driver to end the show, then there's no way it should have been the main event. But you closed out with that badass pile driver. Yeah, take my money for the next show, because that was fucking nuts.
You know, I do like how because it wasn't just a random pile driver. It was DeVito pile driving the guy that had taken his daughter. Yes. So it was very pointed, very like, it was done for a reason. So I liked it.
You drugged my daughter, I'll murder you. I
think that's a fair sentence, I would say.
I think at the end of the day, any dad that has their daughter getting drugs from some punky ass teenager or whatever has every right to murder that guy.
I agree.
You know, I don't think murder's okay, but if it comes to my daughter, and I don't have kids, so I can't say my daughter because that's not a thing. But if I did have a daughter and that happened, murder is definitely happening. And
I don't like how you're looking me in the eyes when you're saying that. But
Kyle.
Well, if I feel like murdering a daughter, it won't be yours. That's for sure.
Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. No, I mean, but all in all, I think from watching that as being one of my first early ROH experiences, because I mean, when I first started watching ROH, it was probably like, I don't know, 2009, 2010. I mean, I missed the whole Fall. I mean, I've obviously seen the Fallen, or the Age of the Fall. Sorry, I don't know why I keep calling them the Fallen. The Age of the Fall, when I seen their debut, was from YouTube. You know, little bits and pieces I've seen from YouTube, but I've never watched a full show from earlier days. And this was, I think, a really good experience all in all. You know, I think the biggest takeaway was Slick Wagner Brown does nothing for me. Pile drivers through 2 tables off of a steel cage is possible. Blood can clot while it drips from your face.
Sure can.
You can, do a suicide dive over a barricade when it's pushed to a ring. So there was a lot of good takeaways, I think, here. A lot of good stuff happened. A lot of fun. All in all, we got to see Sanjay Dutt do a sprinkler. And that's, I think, what the biggest part of the show was.
I would agree. I was going to say the exact same thing. Is like, yeah, we got, this legendary cage match, this crazy pile driver, Punk versus AJ, Ricky Steamboat. But Sanjay Dutt in his big shiny pants really drove this one home for me, I think. So I would agree. We're on the same page.
I think so, too. And this was pre-pencil and everything like that. And thank you, Sanjay. Thank you so much.
Were pencils invented after 2004?
No, this was before Sanjay started carrying the pencil.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
Sanjay Dutt invented the pencil after this. You didn't know?
Look, this is the kind of insight that you can get on a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends. Once again, man, appreciate you checking out the show. Appreciate you coming on, talking about it. Where can everybody find you and taste you and twiddle your nipples until they're red and purple?
So I prefer the only left nipple. The right nipple kind of gets a little weird.
Right. Yeah, we all know this.
If you guys want to, touch my left nipple, I can be found at a pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends. I'm on Instagram, X, Twitter, whatever the fuck you want to call it, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Pandora, MySpace, Zanga.
Zanga.
Anywhere you can find social media, just try to find me and I might be there. TikTok for sure. I haven't done a show in a couple months, but I'm coming back and it's going to be a fun one when I come back. So just be ready. Also, anybody that enjoys my show and has come here to see me and has experienced Kyle's a very fun guy, man. I love doing these shows with him. And this is probably the most fun I've ever had being on these shows with him. So Kyle, keep doing your thing, man. Keep having fun, keep killing it. Cause you're honestly one of the best out there, man. I love what you do. And,
I appreciate it.
Anytime I can share your stuff, your content, whatever. Hey, you know what? I talk to my girlfriend about you all the time, Kyle,
Do ya?
Oh,
just
dude.
nonstop.
We'll go through TikTok and I'll be like, here, watch Kyle here. And I'll be posting shit like what you do and shit. And I'm like, Kyle's so much fun. And I was like, I told her the first experience that I had with you. Like, I remember it was like 2-3 years ago. We both did the awards ceremony for the Angle podcast. And you did something where you came out of the shower, or you were holding your cat or some shit. And I died laughing. And I remember I messaged you and I was like, dude, Kyle, that was the funniest shit. Never had any interaction with you beforehand. And I was like, this was the funniest fucking thing in the world. And now I feel like you're probably one of my favorite people on social media and podcast wise. So, anytime I can share your content, anytime I can do this with you, anytime we can shoot the shit, it's always a pleasure, always an honor. Honor's all mine to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, and I tolerate you. So
I appreciate that. Somebody has to. I mean, the crickets don't usually when I have my terrible dad jokes. But I feel like I get a chuckle here and there out of you, so I'll keep doing it,
What is the joke? You said I was a fun guy earlier. What's the joke where it's like, why did the mushroom why does everybody love a mushroom? Because he's a fun guy. You know what I mean? There's like a joke like that.
See, that's funny to me. That's a good
it's not. There's probably a better. I've been Googling fun guy jokes, and nothing is coming. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Oh, got it. Pretend like I didn't just say it, right? Why was the mushroom the life of the party?
Why?
Because he's a fun guy.
Good one.
Oh, no better way to end a show, right?
Great way to end the show. I appreciate it. Good fun guy joke. Good
barrel,
dad joke.
Barrel laughs. Yep. All right, that's where we end it. Once again, thank you to Matt for joining me on today's episode. Always a good old time with Matty Boy. Go check him out. A pro wrestling podcast with Matt and friends, wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as YouTube. Follow me at Apron Bump. Join the Discords. Like the bell. Jiggle my balls. Spit on me. Spit on me. Put your heels on my tits. I don't know. Hey, question: if you've made it this far, you must be a real fan, or a real friend, or maybe you're upside down after a car accident and you can't reach the stop button. I don't know. Whatever the case is, you're here. Ring of Honor is as they expand, as they grow, they're gonna have a lot more shows, like with more frequency. And I've been doing like the double shows, covering like multiple shows in one episode. I'm almost wondering if it's worth it to just make this like a watch along series. Kind of just playing around with that. Maybe I don't know how like the copyright shit works. Like I think I could probably do it on Twitch, maybe just share my screen or provide a link to the show, but I'm open to that. If there's a hunger, if there's people that would watch these shows along with me, I would absolutely do that. But won't be doing that anytime soon, probably, unless people want it. But just throwing that out there as an idea. And but yeah, join the Discord if you want to talk about it, or shoot me a DM, or shoot me in the face and call me Sally. With that, that's about all Daddy has for you today. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Love you, love you, love you. Big old smooches all over your face. Mwah. I'm hard.
The hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it. Let's get it started. It's the hardest, talk around and disregard it. Strip you off the ground, show you what hard is. Standing strong and proud, nothing can knock it.